When it comes time to sell your home in Maine and New Hampshire, one of the most important things you need to know is exactly what fees that you're going to be paying to sell your home. Then, after you determine your home's value, you can simply subtract those fees along with any mortgage that you have on the property to determine your net profit, which at the end of the day is the only thing that you care about. How much money am I going to make when I sell my home? When most people think about fees to sell, they most often think about the commission that they have to pay a realtor. And while obviously this is an important fee, it's actually one of the most transparent fees of the whole process because it is discussed and agreed upon between the agent and the seller prior to signing any sort of listing agreement. However, there are other taxes and fees that most people don't even know about until they see their final settlement statement. And so today, I just want to take a moment to tell you about the hidden fees involved in selling your home in both the state of Maine and New Hampshire that you may not know about. Real quick though, just let me introduce myself. My name's Cam Avery. I'm actually a local real estate agent with the Avery Realty Group. And first of all, welcome to this channel. It's all about real estate in both Maine and New Hampshire. And so if that's something that you're interested in, definitely subscribe. So let's get right into the video. The first fee that I want to discuss is what's known as the transfer tax. This is a state tax that is imposed on anyone who is buying or selling real estate in their given states. In New Hampshire, the tax is imposed on both the buyer and the seller at the rate of 75 cents per $100 of the price of consideration for the sale, granting, or transfer. So, for example, a home that costs $400,000 would have a transfer tax of $3,000 to the buyer and $3,000 to the seller. In Maine, the rate of tax is $2.20 for each $500 or fractional part of $500 of the value of the property being transferred, and this is split between the buyer and seller. So for that same $400,000 property, the total transfer tax in Maine would be $1,760, split between the buyer and seller at $880 apiece, which as you can see is quite different in both Maine and New Hampshire. In Maine, you're going to be paying significantly less for the transfer tax, but here is where things get interesting, and this is where I want you to pay attention if you're selling your house in Maine. Maine also has an out-of-state resident withholding tax of 2.5% of the purchase price. In other words, if you're a non-Maine resident, in other words, you do not live in Maine, your address is not in the state of Maine, and you sell a property in Maine, it's a second home, it's a vacation home, then you are subject to a tax of 2.5% of the sales price. So for that $400,000 property, an out-of-state resident selling their home in Maine would pay an additional $10,000 of withholding tax, which is used as an estimated tax payment towards any Maine tax liability on the gain realized from the state, which is a fancy way of saying Maine is not letting you leave the state without paying them something. It's a tax that was imposed because out-of-state residents were selling their properties in Maine without having to pay any taxes to the state. And so Maine imposed this out-of-state withholding tax. And this one is super important to know if you live outside of the state of Maine but own a second home here. So when it comes time to sell, you will be subject to that withholding tax. Now there is ways to fight it, there is ways to argue around it, and so definitely you can speak with an attorney about how to do that, but it's definitely something you will need to be aware of if you're an out-of-state resident looking to sell a property in Maine. Equally important to note, New Hampshire does not have any withholding tax. So transfer taxes and withholding taxes are important fees to be aware of when it comes time to sell, and also know that the real estate taxes on the property that you are selling will be prorated to the date that you close on the house. And so any real estate taxes that you owe for that year up until the day of closing will be due at the closing and part of your closing costs. Hey, I just want to let you know, if you are planning on selling your home in Maine and New Hampshire, we created a complete home selling guide. You can download it totally for free just by clicking the link right in the description below. Another important fee to be aware of is that as the seller, you are responsible for preparing the deed to sell the property. This is paid for by the seller as part of their closing costs and can range from anywhere from a few $100s to $1,000 depending on the closing company or title attorney that you hired to prepare the deed. Generally, it's a few $100s. Also, there may be wiring fees. If you're having the closing funds wired into your bank account, these are usually around $50. Finally, most likely the largest fee that you'll incur in the sale of your home will probably be the paying off of your current mortgage. Unless, of course, you're one of the few people that have paid your house off in full, which good on you for doing. So as part of the closing, the title company will contact the company that holds your mortgage to determine exactly how much you still owe on the property. At closing, they're going to wire the funds to the mortgage company to completely pay off your loan, and then the remaining funds will be your net profit, which, once again, at the end of the day, that's what we care about. How much money am I going to make total? So as you can see, it's not just about commission when it comes time to sell your home. So make sure that you factor in the transfer taxes and other fees as well so that you know exactly how much you'll make when it comes time to sell your home. If you have any more questions on this, feel free to reach out directly, and make sure to watch this video here where I'm going to give you 10 things that you can do right now to increase the value of your home by $10,000 or more.